Shiki is a troubled and angry teenager, just one bad day away from unloading his frustrations on his entire class. Unsurprisingly, he gets expelled from school for his behavior, mainly because he kept threatening to use his classmates for target practice. Though he pretends not to care about the expulsion, deep down, he knows his life is going nowhere. He figures he'll probably end up flipping burgers at Mickey D's for the rest of his life. Moments later, Shiki's father storms into the room and smacks him on the head after receiving the expulsion letter. Outraged, he tries to hit Shiki again, but this time, Shiki anticipates the move and dodges, jumping onto his bed. His father calms down slightly but still demands an explanation, not only about the expulsion, but also about how Shiki managed to collect the guns stashed in his room, since that kind of arsenal isn't easy or legal to acquire. He warns Shiki to straighten up before he ruins his life. This strikes a nerve. Shiki snaps back, shouting that he's glad they aren't related by blood, because he'd never want to end up like his father. That deeply hurts his father, and though Shiki realizes he went too far, neither of them gets the chance to apologize as the phone in the liquor store downstairs rings. His father goes to answer it and is surprised to get a large beer order. Since business has been slow, he's happy to oblige and heads out in his car to make the delivery. Once Shiki sees his father leave, he picks up a gun for target practice and mutters about how he wishes things had turned out differently. Suddenly, he hears a loud crash outside his room. Before he can react, he's dragged onto the street by a rope of black mist. Disoriented, Shiki sees a man named Sameter walking out of the smoke, and he seems to know exactly who Shiki is. Just then, a car slams into Sameter, pinning him to a wall. Shiki's father shouts at him to get in the car immediately, and without hesitation, Shiki jumps in. As they drive away, Shiki starts bombarding his father with questions. Who was that man? Why was he attacked? And how did his father manage to hit someone so calmly with his car? His father explains that someone like Sameter wouldn't die from just being run over. Still confused, Shiki demands answers. His father decides it's time to reveal the truth. Shiki is a descendant of the Oni, while Samidare is a descendant of the Momotaro, which is why he's hunting Shiki. Before he can explain further, the black mist begins surrounding their car, causing it to malfunction. Forced to drive into an abandoned factory, they escape on foot. But before long, the black mist engulfs their car and it explodes in flames. In the chaos, Shiki's father loses sight of him for a moment, and in that instant, Sameter kidnaps Shiki, binding him in the air with black mist. When Shiki demands to know why he's being attacked, Sameter coldly responds that anyone with Oni blood is a pest that must be exterminated. Just as Samidare prepares to kill Shiki, his father intervenes. He explains that the legends of the Momotaro and the Oni are real and that their war has been ongoing for millennia. Across generations, the Momotaro Agency was formed by the descendants of Momotaro to exterminate the Oni. Though Shiki is still confused, his father tells him to stay back while he handles Sameter. As the fight begins, Sameter manifests two swords from the black mist and attacks with incredible speed. Shiki's father counters with his own mist blade, revealing his familiarity with the technique. The black mist is a unique power possessed only by the descendants of Momotaro. Here comes a shocking revelation. Shiki's father was once a member of the Momotaro Agency himself. His real name was Tsuyoshi Momo, and he used to work alongside Sameter. He abandoned that life to raise Shiki away from the agency's eyes, but he couldn't hide forever. Sameter asks if Tsuyoshi has forgotten how dangerous Oni can be. But Tsuyoshi refuses to engage in that argument. He only wants to protect his son. Despite putting up a good fight, Tsuyoshi is eventually wounded, his chest cut open, leaving him unconscious. Horrified, Shiki yells at Samidare for hurting his father, prompting Sameter to turn his attention back to Shiki to finish him off. But with the last of his strength, Tsuyoshi grabs Sameter's leg, asking why he would go so far to kill an innocent child. He declares that a father doesn't need a reason to protect his son. Shiki might have Oni blood and be a poor student, but he has never hurt anyone. Tsuyoshi words strike a nerve with Sameter, who begins to feel the weight of his regrets, but he refuses to listen further. He prepares to finish off Tsuyoshi, while Shiki watches helplessly. Overwhelmed by rage and hatred, Shiki's body begins to bleed from every orifice. When Sameter looks back, Shiki is no longer there. Suddenly, Sameter hears the sound of multiple guns cocking near his head. Startled, he instinctively jumps back, narrowly avoiding an attack, but he still has no idea where Shiki is. Just then, Sameter notices a drop of blood hit the floor. He looks up and finds an awakened Shiki clinging to the ceiling. Sameter is stunned that Shiki not only awakened his Oni powers, but also managed to control his blood so quickly. What makes the Oni truly terrifying, however, is their utter lack of humanity, making them brutally relentless. Sameter prepares his sword, bracing for Shiki's next move. But as Shiki starts firing blood missiles at him, Sameter realizes the situation is getting out of hand. He opts to flee, escaping the blast radius. But the battle isn't over yet. Emerging from the smoke, Shiki lands a devastating kick that sends Sameter crashing into rubble, leaving him barely conscious. Standing over him, Shiki unleashes his entire arsenal of weapons, destroying the warehouse in a violent barrage. Miraculously, Sameter survives, but before he can recover, Shiki suddenly reverts back to his human form. Confused, Shiki wonders why he's covered in blood, a natural reaction considering the carnage. Seeing this, Sameter prepares to strike, eager to finish Shiki before he transforms again. He charges, muttering that all Oni must be exterminated, no exceptions. Shiki, unable to transform at will, is completely vulnerable. As Sameter's blade is about to land, Tsuyoshi, Shiki's father, throws himself between them, taking the fatal blow. Sameter is shocked that Tsuyoshi would go so far to protect an Oni, but Tsuyoshi, recalling the precious memories spent with Shiki, doesn't mind dying if it means protecting his son. Exhausted by the prolonged fight and mindful that the destruction is attracting attention, Sameter withdraws, melting away into a cloud of black mist. The Momotaro agency must remain hidden after all. Once Sameter is gone, Tsuyoshi collapses in Shiki's arms. Panicked, Shiki says he'll call an ambulance, but Tsuyoshi admits that no hospital can save him now. His time is nearly up. He wants to speak with Shiki one last time. First, he apologizes for keeping the truth from Shiki, but says it wasn't an easy topic to bring up. Knowing he won't be around much longer, he urges Shiki to become stronger, to surpass both the Momotaro and the Oni, so he can live a truly free life. Shiki, on the verge of tears, yells at his father to stop talking like he's already dead. Determined, he lifts Tsuyoshi to carry him to a hospital. Seeing Shiki's concern brings a smile to Tsuyoshi's face, but his injuries are too severe. After only a few steps, Tsuyoshi's body gives out and he collapses. Shiki desperately begs his father to get up, regretting that he never apologized for the hurtful things he said that morning, but it's already too late. Tsuyoshi has passed away. As Shiki sits weeping over his father's body, someone suddenly approaches from behind, saying Shiki can't stay there because witnesses are approaching. Startled, Shiki tries to prepare for another fight, but before he can even turn around, he's struck in the neck and knocked out instantly. It takes considerable skill to sneak up on someone while wearing roller skates, but this stranger clearly outmatched Shiki. Meanwhile, the leaders of the Momotaro agency are in an uproar upon hearing about Sameter's failure to eliminate Shiki. Some wonder if Sameter has grown weaker, but given the situation, they can't fault his decision to withdraw. The agency's existence must remain secret. Regardless, they insist Shiki must be killed before the public learns about the Oni. However, that plan just became more difficult. After being knocked out, Shiki was taken to a remote island, far away from the public eye. The idea is to enroll him in a school full of half-Oni like himself, where he can properly train his abilities. Before that, though, Midano Naito, the man who captured Shiki, needs to evaluate him to see if he's worth recruiting. When Shiki wakes up, he finds himself shirtless and tied to a chair. Strangely, the man behind him is doing push-ups on an umbrella, a bizarre sight, but not the strangest thing Shiki has seen recently. The man introduces himself as Naito, and now that Shiki is awake, he begins explaining the situation. First, Naito reveals his horns, proving that he too is an Oni. He tells Shiki he was brought here for two reasons: evaluation and retrieval. As Shiki already knows, the Momotaro agency hunts down Oni using their black mist. The man who killed his father, Sameter, was one of them. To fight back, the Oni agency was formed, and Naito's job is to find newly awakened Oni like Shiki and assess if they're fit to join. Once the briefing ends, Naito unties Shiki's mouth so he can speak. As soon as he's able, Shiki starts yelling, demanding to know what they've done with his father's body. Annoyed by the shouting, Naito deducts points from the evaluation and assures Shiki that his father's body is safely stored in the facility. But he's dead, so it doesn't matter much. Shiki struggles violently, trying to break free. But this behavior is precisely why Naito tied him up in the first place. Seeing his anger isn't helping, Shiki calms himself and politely asks Naito to release him, explaining that he has a score to settle with the man who killed his father. Despite Shiki's calm words, his face is still contorted with rage, so Naito refuses. He knows Shiki wouldn't stand a chance against the Momotaro agent yet, but since Shiki is so eager to throw himself into battle, Naito decides there's a better way to evaluate his potential. Naito takes off his tie, and before Shiki can react, he sneaks up behind him and begins strangling him with it. This is all part of Naito's test. Shiki must figure out how to escape, or he dies. Either outcome doesn't bother Naito in the slightest. Refusing to die at the hands of some roller skating jerk, Shiki struggles violently, to the point where blood starts pooling around his eyes. Unfortunately, he can't break free in time and eventually passes out. Naito is fully prepared to keep strangling him until he's dead, but just then, Shiki's subconscious kicks in and he enters berserker mode. The blood on the floor forms spikes that nearly impale Naito, forcing him to back away. The moment Naito looks away, he hears the click of a machine gun aimed at his head. Shiki has manifested it and opens fire without hesitation. When the dust settles, however, Naito is completely unharmed. He shielded himself with his blood umbrella, a technique born from his blood manipulation. Seeing that Shiki hasn't learned to control his blood powers and only fights while berserk, Naito decides this could be a teachable moment. He plans to subdue Shiki as gently as possible. When Shiki regains consciousness, his arm is drenched in blood and Naito stands over him. Shiki has no idea what just happened. As expected, Naito explains that when an Oni goes berserk, they lose all sense of self and destroy everything around them, hence why the room is now a wreck. Since Shiki still looks confused, Naito assumes he must be an idiot. To clarify, he bluntly tells Shiki that he's graceless and clueless about blood control. Declaring Shiki disqualified, Naito's words leave him frustrated and angry. Yet, even in his frustration, Shiki realizes that Naito is overwhelmingly strong. He knows he can't beat him, but if he wants revenge on the Momotaro agency, he needs help. So he swallows his pride and bows, begging Naito to take him as a student. Naito immediately rejects the request. In battle, fighting without thinking is suicide, and since Shiki mindlessly went berserk, he's deemed unfit. Unable to control his blood and acting purely on emotion, Shiki is, in Naito's words, useless. Since Shiki failed the evaluation, Naito declares that he'll have to kill him to prevent a rogue berserker from running free. Shocked but aware that Naito isn't bluffing, Shiki bolts, trying to escape. But as Naito prepares his blood umbrella to strike, Shiki knows he can't outrun him, so instead, he charges straight at Naito. Naito thinks Shiki has lost his mind, setting up a wall of blood spikes to block him. He anticipates that Shiki will either dodge to the side, leap over, or retreat, standard options against an impenetrable wall. As expected, Shiki jumps over the spikes, but what Naito didn't predict is that, midair, Shiki forms a gun from his blood and fires point blank at Naito's head. Though impressed that Shiki landed a hit, Naito remains unharmed. The bullet wasn't strong enough. Still, he's shocked that Shiki managed to control his blood, though he suspects it might have been a fluke since Shiki looks ready to go berserk again, preparing his ultimate attack to finish things. Naito is stunned when Shiki suppresses his berserk state and stays in control. Curious, Naito asks how he managed it. Shiki explains that he saw Naito use his ring to cut his finger and manifest his blood umbrella, so he copied the idea. In his mind, he just screamed, "Give me a gun," and his arm transformed. It sounds absurd to Naito, but he can't deny it worked. Typically, Oni must keep their emotions tightly in check to avoid going berserk, especially hotheads like Shiki. But Shiki is different. Rather than suppressing his emotions, he seemingly beat them into submission, making his berserk mode work for him. Crude, but undeniably effective. Shiki then pledges to grow strong enough to kill the man who murdered his father, promising to do whatever it takes if Naito will teach him. Seeing his sincerity, Naito still declines, reminding Shiki that what he just did was a dead man's gamble with no backup plan if things went wrong. That kind of recklessness is unacceptable. However, Naito admits that Shiki isn't entirely hopeless, so he changes his mind. He cancels Shiki's execution and agrees to take him in as his student. He doesn't elaborate on what changed his mind, but he recognizes Shiki's potential and refuses to let it go to waste. He explains that they are on Anigashima Island, home to Ritsu Academy, a military school built specifically for Oni. The academy's purpose is to train Oni to fight against the Momotaro agency. While Naito continues explaining, Shiki is more distracted by the fact that he's on an island, prompting Naito to poke him in the face for asking irrelevant questions mid-explanation. Naito reveals that he is the homeroom teacher at the academy. From now on, he'll be responsible for training Shiki and the other students. Shiki will have to live, train, and fight constantly to one day face the Momotaro agents. Overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information, Shiki can barely process it all. But in the end, it doesn't matter to him. He'll do whatever it takes to get stronger and avenge his father. A little while later, Naito leads Shiki to the changing room to put on his new school uniform. Shiki feels strange. He never thought he'd wear a school uniform again after being expelled from his old school. Naito informs him that there are other students in his class, but warns that Shiki is by far the weakest among them, so he'd better not pick any fights. While changing, Shiki asks where his father is. Naito explains that they've kept his father's body in the morgue, and that arranging the funeral is Shiki's responsibility. This reminder dampens Shiki's mood, but Naito advises him not to dwell on regrets. Instead, he should focus on getting stronger, so he never has to feel such regret again. Not wanting to waste any more time, Naito skates off, telling Shiki that he only has 15 seconds to get to class, or he'll be late. Shiki protests that it's not fair, but with no other option, he runs as fast as he can. They eventually reach the classroom door. As Shiki contemplates the coolest way to introduce himself, Naito, fed up with the delay, kicks him inside. Shiki crashes face first onto the floor, giving himself a nosebleed. Looking up, Shiki asks the first person he sees for a tissue. The student, Jin Kaugasaki, coldly tells him to shut up and sit down. Shiki is immediately irritated and gets in Jin's face, ready to argue. Besides Jin, there are other students in the class. Kina Sazanami, Juji Yujirube, Homer Bayabugora, and Ikari Mamamiya. But right now, Shiki only cares about settling things with Jin. Before a fight can start, both Shiki and Jin suddenly find themselves seated next to each other, with Naito standing behind them. Neither of them notice Naito move. They're both paralyzed with fear. Shiki complains about sitting next to someone like Jin, but Naito couldn't care less about their personal disputes. Moving on, Naito announces that today's activity is a game of tag. Shiki is confused, thinking it must be a code word, but no, it's just a literal game of tag. The students must make their way through the forest to the goal, but Naito will be chasing them. Anyone he catches will be expelled on the spot. To make things fair, Naito promises not to use his blood powers, although the students can use theirs as much as they want. However, if anyone goes berserk, he'll be forced to use his blood too, and things won't end well for them. Jin asks what happens if someone accidentally kills Naito during the game. Naito replies that if anyone can kill him, they'll immediately graduate and be assigned to any unit they desire, though he warns that it won't be easy. The class is visibly excited by this reward. Shiki still feels hesitant. He's not used to such extreme situations, but he isn't about to back down. He declares that he's ready, telling Naito to bring it on. Naito then announces an additional rule and pulls out 2 small balls, still smaller than his ego. He tells the students that to pass this test, they must have a ball with them when they reach the academy. Without missing a beat, he hurls the balls into the restricted area. Naturally, the students assume they'll have to fight over them like it's dodgeball meets the Hunger Games. But Naito clarifies, they'll be split into teams. Team 1, Shiki, Jin, and the timid, pink-haired girl Homer. Team 2, the delinquent Dickety and the classic nerd Juji. Team 3, the perpetually anxious Rikuro and the confident queen herself, Kina. Naito tells the teams he'll be entering the restricted zone 15 minutes after them to give them a head start. Seems fair-ish. But then Shiki, never one to read the room, blurts out that he doesn't want to team up with the masked weirdo. A+ teamwork energy. Naito, ever the patient rollerblading menace, informs Shiki that refusal to work as a team means immediate expulsion. So Shiki, with the enthusiasm of a cat being dunked in water, takes his words back. Then Homer politely introduces herself to Shiki. Having never experienced actual female interaction, he instantly catches feelings like a rookie in a rom-com. Trying to sound cool, he tells her he'll protect her. Homer, visibly flustered, says there's no need for heroics. She just doesn't want to be a burden. She then approaches Jin to introduce herself, but he's deep in edgy loner mode and completely ignores her. Homer, now spiraling, apologizes for simply existing. Cue tears. Shiki yells at Jin for hurting her feelings, quickly turning to console Homer with, "Don't ruin your cute face by crying." Then it's right back to trash-talking Jin, who snaps back with some discount alpha male one-liner, probably cribbed from some tape podcast. Nato, tired of the drama, tells them to get moving already. Jin and Shiki dart into the forest, with Hammer trailing behind, doing her best to keep up, despite clearly being emotionally whiplashed. Inside the forest, Jin starts ninja leaping through the trees like he's auditioning for Naruto, daydreaming about how killing Nato would get him a diploma and a fast pass to the front lines where he can face his greatest enemy. But his brooding is cut short when Shiki sneak attacks him. Jin, unimpressed, demands to know what Shiki's problem is. Shiki says he's going to prove he's stronger. Jin is all in. He removes his mask, revealing deep scars around his mouth. Shiki, trying not to look grossed out, taunts him, saying only weaklings show off their battle damage. Unbothered, Jin pulls off his gloves, revealing stitch-covered hands. He tears one open, letting his blood ooze out and shape into spinning saw blades. Shiki, stunned, internally panics that the creator of Chainsaw Man might sue them. Jin tells Shiki to scram if he's scared, but Shiki, thinking of his father's murder, refuses. Jin pauses for a second, sensing something deeper, then gets all ominous and declares that they'll never understand each other. Shiki replies that he doesn't want to understand him and bites his thumb to activate his blood weapon. But nothing happens. His arm just sits there like an uncooperative noodle. Desperate, he picks up a stick, because why not, and goes in swinging caveman style. Spoiler, it's wildly ineffective. Jin is casually cutting down trees like he's clearing land for a new mall. Meanwhile, Hammer is wandering through the forest, wondering where the boys went when she hears trees crashing down. Her anxiety surges and she spirals again, feeling like she doesn't belong in this brutal world. But then she remembers, Shiki called her cute. With a tiny spark of motivation, she sets off to find him, unaware that she's literally just a few steps away from one of the test balls. Typical anime luck. Back with the boys, Shiki is trying to punch Jin with all he's got. Jin, not even needing his chainsaws, is easily wiping the floor with him. It's a one-sided beatdown, and Shiki's fists might as well be wet noodles. Shiki can't stop wondering how the heck Jin is controlling his blood powers so smoothly. But then it clicks. Jin's ability is different. His chainsaw blood technique isn't like Shiki's tornadoes at all. Lost in thought, Shiki drops his guard, and Jin lands a solid punch that knocks him flat. Oof. Frustrated but still conscious, Shiki watches as Jin turns to walk away, telling him to go cry in a corner, like the loser he is. But just as the edgy chainsaw boy takes a few steps, Shiki groans and gets back up, declaring that the fight isn't over yet. Annoyed, Jin casually sends a blood chainsaw flying at him, and right at that moment, Hammer strolls in, blissfully unaware that she's about to get turned into sashimi. Her tragically bad survival instincts kick in, or rather, don't, and she steps right into the line of fire. Shiki, panicking like a dad chasing a toddler near a busy road, manages to push Homer out of the way just in time, getting slightly wounded himself in the process. He stands over her protectively and demands that Jin apologize. But Jin, always the sunshine of the group, coldly replies that if she had died from such a weak attack, it would have been her own fault. Yikes. Then Hammer starts mumbling, "I'm sorry," like she's reciting an anxious mantra. Shiki tries to comfort her, telling her it wasn't her fault, but suddenly she starts bleeding from her nose, like a lot. The blood begins to swirl, forming into a giant humanoid figure, and both Shiki and Jin freeze. They stare in horror, basically thinking, what in the name of Attack on Titan is this? Homer, barely coherent, pleads with them to run. Her giant blood construct, nicknamed by the fandom as Female Titan's dramatic cousin, smashes the ground with a powerful attack. Shiki narrowly avoids it, while Jin runs toward it like it insulted his playlist and starts slashing away. Unfortunately, his chainsaws barely tickle the massive creature. Shiki yells to Homer, asking if she can stop it, but she tearfully says she can't. She collapses from blood loss, and Shiki grabs her, planning to carry her to safety until he realizes something strange. The Titan is protecting her. Even Jin notices, it's like Homer's blood has a will of its own. Suddenly, the Titan projectile vomits blood, like it just took a shot of ghost pepper sauce. Jin hides behind a rock, but Shiki, ever the punching bag of fate, takes the full blast. Then Homer, still crying, begs the Titan to stop calling her big sister. Cue Shiki's confusion. Wait, what? She tells him to run again, but Shiki refuses. He doesn't want anyone else dying in front of him, not after what happened to his father. Then the Titan lets out a roar, so loud it sends shockwaves through the entire forest. Students far away feel it, and even Nato, perched on a tree branch, watches in interest. He decides to let Shiki and Jin deal with this mess for now. Back at the scene, Shiki injures himself, trying to activate his powers, but nothing happens. The Titan swings at him, he dodges, but she picks up rocks and hurls them like a baseball pitcher on steroids. One hits him hard, flinging him back. Worse than the pain, though, is the humiliation. He's never felt this useless before. He's supposed to be a fighter, not a crash test dummy. Frustrated, Shiki tears up, but don't call it crying. Jin shows up and roasts him, telling him to go home if he's gonna cry like a little. "I'm sweating from my eyes," Shiki yells back. Ignoring the drama, Jin slices open his wounds and creates 2 different chainsaw types on each arm, like some kind of violent Swiss Army knife. Despite the pain from earlier attacks, he's determined to win. Watching from afar, Nato is impressed. He explains, probably to no one in particular, that Oni blood can't take any form a user imagines, but those forms are shaped by their trauma, preferences, and personal experiences. So basically, blood therapy is canon now. Back in battle, Jin uses a circular chainsaw to climb the Titan, like he's reenacting that one scene from Levi Ackerman vs. Beast Titan. He goes for the neck, but the Titan sacrifices an arm to block it. Meanwhile, Shiki, still on the ground, is yelling at his hand like it just failed a math test. Why can't he form a weapon? Then it hits him. Jin makes cutting tools because he likes cutting stuff. Hammer's Titan clearly has an emotional link to her. And what does Shiki like? Guns. Like, a lot. Possibly more than the average American. Suddenly, Shiki figures it out. Electric light bulb. Back in the chaos, Jin is struggling. The Titan roars again, bursting his eardrums. Dazed and bleeding, he's about to go down when Shiki steps up. He's now holding a grenade launcher made of his own blood. Totally not overcompensating. Nato watches with awe, impressed that Shiki finally unlocked his power. Shiki, excited like a kid with a new toy, dodges the Titan's next attack and fires. The grenade hits dead on, and boom, the Titan explodes in a glorious, gory mess. Both Jin and Nato are left stunned. Shiki Ichinos, the expelled delinquent with a heart of gold, just blew up a kaiju with a blood blaster. Not bad for a guy who was getting thrashed with a stick 20 minutes ago. The female Titan begins to dissolve, her massive body breaking into bloodied fragments scattered across the battlefield. As the storm clears, well, a literal one this time, Hammer loses consciousness, her body giving in to the toll of summoning her terrifying blood beast. Meanwhile, Jin is still standing there, jaws dropped, processing the fact that Shiki just nuked a Titan with a freaking blood-made grenade launcher. But then it starts raining blood. For a horrifying second, everyone thinks they're in a horror movie, Carrie style. But turns out it's just the airborne splatter from Shiki's earlier attack. The blood slowly mixes with the air, transforming into regular rain. Very metal. Jin, still awestruck, realizes that Shiki's move didn't just obliterate the Titan, it literally altered the weather. But Shiki, being Shiki, doesn't even notice the weather part. His only thought is to check on Hammer. He takes one step toward her and promptly collapses face first like a flipped pancake. Vision blurry, body drained, he can't even twitch. That's when Naito strolls in, cool as ever, and tells Shiki he just dumped an insane amount of blood power into that last attack. No wonder his tank is empty. Shiki, being stubborn as usual, insists he can keep going and actually manages to stand for a solid 5 seconds. Then gravity reminds him who's boss. Naito, ever the blunt mentor, calls him a noob who can't even control his own powers. Yet deep down, he's impressed. Shiki's blood output was next level. He warns him seriously, if you use too much blood, you can literally die. But instead of worrying about himself, Shiki gets anxious about Hammer. He asks Naito to check on her first, saying he can wait. Naito is genuinely surprised. Here's this blood-drained rookie, barely breathing, still putting someone else first. Before he can act on that rare moment of respect, Jin attacks him out of nowhere. Fortunately, Naito's reflexes are sharp. He blocks the ambush and pushes Jin back, asking what the hell he's thinking. Jin coldly responds that losers don't matter. If Hammer dies, it's not his problem. That ticks Naito off. He tells Jin straight up, "I hate selfish bastards like you." Jin doesn't flinch. He only asks, "If I kill you, do I graduate?" Oh boy. Naito, unimpressed but honest, confirms, "Yeah, you do?" That's all Jin needs. He lunges again, blood chainsaws roaring, but Naito blocks it with an umbrella. Not just any umbrella. This thing is made from the same indestructible material as the Hulk's pants. He pushes a button, releasing a smokescreen. Jin assumes it's a distraction for a sneak attack and prepares to strike anything that enters his range. But then, bam, he gets pelted by rubber bullets. Turns out, Naito's umbrella doubles as a shotgun. He keeps firing from a distance, aiming with precision and even targeting Jin's previously injured hand. The bullets won't kill, but man, they hurt. Jin, realizing Naito is keeping his distance on purpose, pulls a trick from his hidden deck. He leaps out from cover, dodging the incoming bullets, and throws a series of blood-forged blades at Naito. Naito dodges like a ninja on Red Bull, but is impressed. Jin has range now. They go back and forth, and Jin finally gets behind him in mid-air, thinking he's got this in the bag. But Naito casually tosses another bomb in his face. Jin panics. Boom? Nope. It's just another smoke bomb. And while Jin is bracing for a shot from the fog, Naito pulls a Uno reverse card and pops up behind him with a spine-shattering punch that slams him to the ground like a tent stake. Then comes the lecture. You think knowing your enemy's next move makes you safe? That's exactly what makes you vulnerable. Jin, bruised and barely moving, refuses to give up. So Naito flips his umbrella, yep, it's a cage now, and traps him inside. Even caged and battered, Jin keeps fighting, trying to break out. Naito, dead serious now, asks if he's that desperate to see his dad again. Jin falls silent. How do you know about my dad? He demands. Naito replies calmly, I read your file. I know your father's a Mamoru. That hits like a truck. Every cell in Jin's body seems to reject the thought. And as Shiki overhears all this, he's shocked. They both had traumatic pasts. He didn't expect that. But Jin is too far gone. He seethes in hatred as he reveals the truth. His father is a Mamoru. That monster destroyed his family, experimented on him like a lab rat, and left him covered in scars, body and soul. He grew up surviving on garbage and revenge. And now, with every fiber of his being, he swears he'll kill his father, no matter the cost. His rage explodes into power, giving him the strength to rip the umbrella cage apart. But before he can go full rage mode, Naito grabs him by the face and slams him into the ground hard. You stupid brat, he mutters. Jin tells Shiki that if he dies while chasing his dream, he's just a delusional idiot who'll never see that dream come true. He urges him to live, to swallow his pride, accept defeat if necessary, and keep moving forward if he really wants that dream to become a reality. That finally gets Jin to stop struggling. Meanwhile, Mudano Naito calmly calls the school, reporting that he has an injured student. He informs them that by Abugora, Homer has been retired from the test due to extreme blood loss, and Jin has been tied up like a stubborn goat. On the other hand, Shiki is still on his feet, barely. Naito tells him there's only 6 minutes left before the test ends. Holding one of the 2 test balls, Naito gives Shiki a choice. Either try to take the ball from him or find the second one and reach the school within the remaining 5 minutes. Naturally, Shiki complains that it's unfair, but life and Naito isn't known for fairness, so he sprints away, and Naito casually strolls after him. Back at the tree where Jin is tied up, Shiki pops out of the bushes like a ninja squirrel and says, "Hey, wanna team up?" Jin is baffled. Shiki explains that they don't stand a chance against Naito alone, but together, they might just pull it off. Jin refuses, declaring that being rescued by an idiot would ruin his pride. Shiki, unfazed, is like, yeah, I'm an idiot. But what's more important, your pride or your goal? Then, plot twist. Shiki tells him his dad was a Momotaro too. Jin is stunned. Shiki pulls a classic Naruto move. You and I, we're the same. Somewhere, an anime OST starts playing in the background. Meanwhile, Naito is still searching for Shiki, wondering where that little menace disappeared to. Just then, he spots Shiki running away, dramatically cursing Jin, loud enough to make it theatrical. Naito leaps into his path and taunts him with the test ball, reminding him the clock's ticking. Inside his head, Shiki is cursing Jin again, not for being useless, but because even while tied up, Jin still wants to be the one in charge. Just then, Jin dives in from above, aiming for the ball. Naito dodges effortlessly, but surprise, it was a feint. Jin throws a rope-tied rock around Naito, lassoing him. Shiki grabs the other end, and together they try to drag the human tank. Naito resists easily until Jin fires a blood blade, forcing him to dodge and lose balance. Shiki charges in and smacks the ball out of Naito's hand. The ball rolls to Jin, and Naito expects the two to start fighting over it. But to his shock, Shiki tells Jin to take the ball and run. Shiki celebrates like they just scored a goal, but Naito reminds him that only the person who returns the ball to the school passes. That means only Jin wins. Cue realization. Shiki just played himself. Naito internally labels him a total insert polite insult here, who never thinks about outcomes before acting. Shiki, now regretting his generosity, yells at Jin to come back. but he's already too far away. But then, plot twist number 2. Jin stops. He realizes he wouldn't have gotten this far without Shiki. He turns back and heads toward him. Shiki, baffled, asks, "Are you as bad with directions as Zoro?" Jin, blushing with pride-wrapped rage, "Shut up. I just don't want to owe an idiot like you anything." He tosses the ball to Shiki, saying he'd rather fail than succeed thanks to someone else. Just as their bromance hits peak power, a tiny pink creature dashes in and blocks them. Naito immediately halts the test because Muku, their high-speed delivery pet, has arrived, and it only shows up during emergencies. Sure enough, a radio on Muku's back plays a distress call from the Kyoto branch, which is under attack by the Momotaro agency. Outside the test zone, the other students assume Shiki and the others failed because time ran out. But just then, Naito, Shiki, and Jin return dramatically. Naito informs them that the Kyoto branch is in danger and requesting backup. So, instead of continuing the test, they're heading straight into the storm. Everyone boards a boat because what's an anime without a sudden boat ride? And while students have mixed feelings about joining a real battlefield this soon, Naito reassures them they're only there to support the real fighters. Shortly after, Naito and his students arrive at their destination. He tells them they're heading to the underground area beneath Yuruta Temple, which sounds cool and mysterious, but the mood takes a sharp turn toward confusion when they stop in front of a normal-looking restaurant. The students' exchange looks like, "Did we just get tricked into lunch?" An old lady appears at the entrance, lifts the curtain, and says she's been expecting them, which is either comforting or extremely creepy. She leads them into her cozy living room and then casually reveals a secret underground passageway leading straight to Yuruta Temple. Just your average grandma stuff. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Tsubakuri, captain of the Momotaro agency, has just wiped out an entire squad of Oni, assisted by his ever-loyal and perpetually exasperated vice captain, Yumeji. She's annoyed because Tsubakuri didn't just defeat the Oni, he obliterated them, which means she'll be stuck cleaning up the mess. Tsubakuri, however, defends himself with the casual tone of a mad scientist. He simply can't resist experimenting on Oni whenever he encounters them. This time, he's mildly disappointed because there were only male Oni, and he prefers using female Oni for his tests, claiming they have higher pain tolerance. Yes, he's both sexist and creepy. Yumeji points out that his experiments have gotten a little unhinged, especially his latest Frankenstein creation, an ugly hybrid of a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. Tsubakuri admits it's hideous, but insists it's his crowning achievement. An Oni-eater that only preys on other Oni, the ultimate anti-Oni biological weapon. Yumeji tries to steer him back to reality, reminding him that their mission is to protect civilians and destroy dangerous Oni, not to play Pokemon. Corpse Edition. But Tsubakuri is more fascinated by Oni blood, its healing abilities, its mutations, and the weapons it can produce. Yumeji reminds him that he's only allowed to run these twisted science projects because of his agency membership, and maybe, just maybe, he should contribute to the actual mission once in a while. What neither of them realizes is that a small Oni boy is hiding nearby, overhearing every horrifying word. The agent's voices fade, and the boy breathes a sigh of relief until Tsubakuri suddenly pops his head out like a jump scare, grinning that he's just found a child specimen, which he's been running low on. What a wholesome guy. Before he can act, Yumeji steps in and kicks the boy hard, trying to knock him out, but the kid remains conscious, stubbornly trying to get up. A drop of his blood splashes onto Tsubakuri's uniform, and Yumeji immediately realizes this is bad news. Tsubakuri begins kicking the boy too, explaining that while Oni blood fascinates him scientifically, he's still disgusted by it. Then, to really prove he's a walking nightmare, Tsubakuri uses his ability manipulating black bacteria to control the corpses of the fallen Oni, merging them into a grotesque mountain of flesh and crushing the boy underneath until he dies. His black bacteria powers let him control corpses without any limit, unlike most agents who use them for weapons or spore attacks. Finally, he orders his ugly hybrid monster to eat the pile of Oni remains like it's some kind of grotesque cleanup crew. With the mess handled, Tsubakuri and Yumeji get back to work, which in his case mostly means thinking about more experiments. Back in the underground tunnel, Naito and the students keep walking until they reach a huge door. He opens it with a flourish, revealing the Oni Agency Kyoto base, which is so enormous that Shiki and the others mistake it for a mansion. Just then, a guy with pink hair strolls out of a room. Upon spotting Naito, he approaches calmly until he notices Kina among the students. In a split second, he transforms from cool agent to love-struck teenager, frantically fixing his hair before boldly asking her for her number. Kina, with all the grace of a professional heartbreaker, declines. The rejection hits the pink-haired flirt hard, but Kayaya doesn't lose hope. In his mind, love is a marathon, not a sprint. One day, he's sure luck will be on his side. Shiki, still trying to figure out who this clown is, asks. With a grin, Kayaya introduces himself as the commander of the Oni Agency Support Unit and, oh yeah, an old classmate of Naito back at Rosette Academy. Naito quickly shuts down the reunion vibes and informs everyone he's heading to the front lines. His students perk up, eager to tag along, but he ignores their enthusiasm and instead tells Kayaya he can use them however he wants until he returns. The students are silently wondering if they've just been volunteered as free labor. Before the moment can get more awkward, a nurse rushes in with an emergency report. She notices the academy students and orders them to get changed quickly. They're going to need all hands on deck for this operation. Moments later, everyone is in uniform and heading to the patient center. Shiki looks around and shudders. The place is packed with injured frontline soldiers, and the air is thick with urgency. The nurse calls Kayaya over to a soldier in especially bad shape, both arms and legs gone, lungs shredded, barely breathing. She estimates the man has about 3 minutes left. Shiki is horrified. Life on the front lines suddenly feels far scarier than any training drill. But Kayaya, smiling like he's about to perform a magic trick, tells the patient he's going to be fine. Shiki protests, insisting there's no way this man survives. Kayaya just tells him to trust him, then orders several Oni blood bags to be brought over, promising everyone a frontline reality show demonstration. Meanwhile, Tsubekuri and his team have just crushed the first wave of Oni agents. The survivors, watching their commander and vice commander drop like flies, start wondering if running away is the smarter career move. Tsubekuri walks toward them, clearly intending to finish the job until Naito arrives at the last moment. Naito unleashes his Blood Eclipse release, summoning blood archers that rain arrows down on Tsubekuri. But the captain blocks the attack with the corpses of fallen Oni, using them as shields like the world's grimmest umbrellas. With that little spat out of the way, Tsubekuri casually mentions hearing about a place where Oni have been quietly gathering, wondering aloud if wiping it out would mean the end of the species. Naito has no idea what he's talking about, so Tsubekuri shrugs it off as just another rumor. Back at the agency, Kayaya hooks several Oni blood bags to his own body before turning to the patient. He asks whether the man wants arms or legs first. Given the lung damage, speaking is out of the question, so the soldier mouths his answer, arms first, because if he lives, he wants to hug his kids again. Kayaya reassures him, promising he'll make it back to his family. Then, with a scalpel, he slices into his own skin, letting thick Oni blood flow into the patient's mouth. The man screams in pain, forcing nurses to order the students to hold him down. Seconds later, the blood packs run dry, and the nurse sends a few students to fetch more. Shiki keeps holding the patient until he notices something that makes him stumble backward in shock. The man's arms are growing back. Cell regeneration has kicked in, his lungs are slowly repairing, and his once hopeless condition is reversing right before their eyes. The students watch in stunned silence as the soldier's arms and lungs fully heal before their eyes. Shiki, still trying to process the miracle, asks Kayaya if the man's legs will regenerate too. Kayaya nods, explaining that they will, but only with time and the right medical doses. If they tried to regenerate arms and legs all at once, the patient's body could develop antibodies, making future Oni blood transfusions useless. The man will probably have to retire from the battle unit, but Kayaya tells him he can still join the support team if he wants to help the agency. Overwhelmed, the soldier tears up, thanking Kayaya for saving his life. Turning to the students, Kayaya reminds them that in this war, the man they just saw could easily have been any one of them. He understands their eagerness to fight on the front lines, but he points out that frontline fighters survive because there's always someone watching their backs, and that's exactly the support unit's job. The students, now impressed, offer to help however they can. Kyoya already has a perfect task for Shiki babysitting duty. He points to a little girl named Mei, who arrived the day before after being attacked by a mama oni. Her parents are still missing. Shiki sits beside her and tries making small talk, but she ignores him until he asks if she wants to go to Urata. She says she doesn't know where that is. Shiki is baffled. Everyone learns about Rauta in elementary school, but Mei explains she's never been to school. As they walk down the hallway, a grim sight passes them, a new batch of Oni corpses from a recent battle. Mei stares at the bodies and then freezes. 2 of them are her parents. She breaks down, crying over their loss. Meanwhile, on the front lines, Tsubakuri, with that I've got a nasty idea smirk, tells Naito that he left several Oni corpses laced with his bacteria behind. He figured the enemy would haul them back to base, not realizing they were basically delivering him remote-controlled zombies. Naito's eyes widen as the horrifying implication sinks in. Tsubakuri isn't sure if the corpses have reached the agency yet, so he decides to test his control by moving his fingers. Back at the agency, Mei's father's corpse suddenly sits upright. Overjoyed, Mei thinks her dad is alive until he grabs her by the throat. Shiki and Kyoya rush over, and Kyoya instantly realizes this is Tsubakuri's doing. He orders Shiki to cover Mei's eyes, then swiftly drives 2 scalpels into the corpse's skull, destroying the brain and ending the attack. In cases like this, decapitation alone won't work. You have to take out the brain. Mei, devastated, clings to her father's now lifeless body, sobbing. Kyoya feels the weight of her grief, but quickly realizes the bigger problem. There are over 30 other corpses in the building, all under Tsubakuri's control. Kyoya is still busy feeling sorry for poor little Mei. When it suddenly hits him, there are over 30 corpses inside the building, all under Mamomea at Tsubakuri's control. And right on cue, Mei's mom springs to life and grabs Ichino Shiki from behind, choking him like she's auditioning for a horror movie. Kyoya notices and rushes to help, but before he can even throw a punch, 3 other Oni zombies grab him from behind and pin him down like overenthusiastic wrestling fans. Meanwhile, the nurses, who thought their hardest job was folding sheets, are carrying corpses to the disposal unit when those very corpses suddenly wake up and attack. Moments later, a massive horde of Oni zombies bursts into the patient ward, going straight for the helpless patients. The nurses fight back bravely, proving they're more than just background healers. Back in the other room, Mei cries her little heart out, begging her mom to let go of Shiki. But Shiki knows this isn't Mei's mom anymore, it's a zombie auditioning for Worst Parent of the Year. Kyoya struggles to break free, but those 3 zombies just won't quit. As Shiki starts losing air, he remembers something. The sleek handgun Midano Naito gave him back on the boat. Back then, Shiki wasn't thinking about self-defense, he was just geeking out over finally owning a real gun instead of one of those toy replicas. But this wasn't just any gun, it was loaded with blood-infused bullets, forged from Shiki's own blood. Naito had warned him, don't waste them, save them for when it really counts. Well, if being strangled by your best friend's undead mom doesn't count, nothing does. Shiki hugs Mei to block her view, takes a deep breath, and shoots her mom in the head. The shot lands, and for the first time that night, Shiki feels a wave of relief wash over him. Meanwhile, Kyoya is still pinned down, grunting under a pile of Oni zombies. But Shiki, feeling like a one-man action movie, pulls the trigger 3 more times and blasts all 3 in the head. Kyoya pushes the bodies off himself and looks at Shiki with a mix of respect and wow, kid, you're scarier than me. The 2 help each other back to their feet. Kyoya tells Shiki he'll take care of evacuating the patients, while Shiki handles the main hall full of Oni zombies. No pressure, kid. Meanwhile, things look grim in the patient ward. Zombies are seconds away from turning everyone into an all-you-can-eat buffet. That is, until Yoroshi Ikari suddenly bursts in, fists flying, knocking zombies out with punches so hard you'd think he mistook their heads for punching bags. The other students quickly jump into the fight, defending themselves like true Oni in training. But just as they're starting to push back, they realize something chilling. These zombies aren't just random corpses. Something strange, something much worse is going on. No matter how many times the students struck the zombies, the creatures simply refused to stay down. Kaugasaki Jin looked worried, clearly wondering what to do next. That's when Ichino Shiki suddenly shouted out, telling everyone that the only way to defeat the zombies was with a headshot. Any other strike was basically just a free massage for them. Hearing this, Jin quickly activated his Eclipse technique, launching 3 blood shurikens directly into zombie skulls. Just as Shiki said, they dropped instantly, out cold for good. The others saw this and finally understood the zombie rulebook. Aim for the head or don't bother. With that settled, Waranzaka Kayaya ordered the support unit to focus on evacuating patients and preventing more casualties. Meanwhile, Shiki kept firing his handgun, mowing down zombies like he was in an arcade shooter, though each pull of the trigger left him disgusted. Killing corpses that used to be people, not exactly the dream job. Some students announced they go help with the evacuation, but Yoroshi Ikari snapped at them, saying, "Don't announce it, just do it." The group got the hint and sprinted off while Ikari held his ground like the tank he was born to be. Shiki, however, started to feel uneasy. Every zombie he shot had once been someone important to somebody. Innocent lives, stolen and corrupted. Yet here he was, putting bullets in their skulls while the real enemy, the mama, was still out there. His blood boiled with frustration. Kayaya ordered the remaining nurses to get all patients to safety, while Shiki and the others held the undead back. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the battlefield, Midano Naito faced off against Mamamiya Tsubekuri. Naito charged first, but Tsubekuri casually shoved 3 Oni zombies in front of him as meat shields. Naito stayed calm until Tsubekuri's creepy pet suddenly lunged out of nowhere. Naito narrowly dodged, and in the chaos, the 3 zombies were struck down, their blood splattering against the wall. Tsubekuri smirked and teased him. "You should be happy. I'm saving you the trouble. See, the zombies are dying already." Unamused, Naito told the others to retreat to the evacuation point while he handled Tsubekuri himself. But of course, Tsubekuri wasn't going to let them just walk out. He called forward Mamakusa Yamaji, who used her black bacteria to form a cage, trapping Naito and the others inside. The walls pulsed with a sickly energy. No one could escape unless Yamaji allowed it. Naito asked what they were trying to accomplish. Tsubekuri smugly explained that as long as he had them trapped, they could stay hidden forever. Then he dropped the real bombshell, literally. He revealed he had planted transmitters on every corpse he left behind. By following those signals, he discovered the agency's hideout beneath Aura. Naito's calm expression finally cracked. Tsubekuri grinned, snapped his fingers, and signaled Yamaji. She let the ugly, a grotesque creature, slither through the barrier. The Oni agents stayed on guard, uncertain of what was about to happen. Then the monster began to swell, glowing ominously. Naito's instincts screamed danger. "Everyone, down!" he shouted. The creature exploded, the blast ripping through a 100-meter radius with terrifying force. Tsubekuri watched from afar, sighing in disappointment. HMPH. Not nearly violent enough. I'll work on it next time. Yamaji suggested they check for survivors, but Tsubekuri dismissed the idea, muttering something about not wanting to dirty his freshly washed uniform with blood. Priorities, right? Moments later, Kiriyama Rikuro was seen lying on the ground, body scorched and battered, but still alive. Back at headquarters, Shiki shot the last zombie in the head and finally exhaled in relief. It was over, at least for now. Kayaya announced that the patients had been safely moved to the main hall, and he thanked everyone for their efforts. But the victory felt hollow. Little May stood frozen, staring at her parents' lifeless bodies, bullet holes in their heads. Kayaya's heart sank as he walked over and gently told her he was sorry she had to endure that. Shiki also stepped forward, guilt weighing heavily on him. He admitted he was the one who shot her mother. He recalled the moment and felt the shame crawl back into his chest. But to his surprise, May looked at him with teary eyes and said it was okay. She explained that she had always lived in hiding, never having a normal childhood. She had never even gone to school. Compared to that, maybe this tragedy wasn't so different from the life she already knew. Because of everything she's endured, May isn't even shocked. She always thought this day would come. She just didn't know when. Instead of breaking down, she even smiles at Shiki, telling him not to worry. Hearing this makes Shiki shudder in disbelief. Did she really just say it's okay? Her parents were killed right in front of her, and she's smiling. That's not okay. That's the definition of not okay. Shiki clenches his fists, memories of his own childhood flashing back. Back then, he admired superheroes. To him, the Mamoru were supposed to be the protectors, the Justice League of their world. But now, they take innocent lives just because of their bloodline. Some superheroes, more like supervillains with better branding. Overwhelmed, Shiki hugs May tightly and declares that if the so-called heroes are this twisted, then he'll become the villain. Why? So he can destroy those heroes and build a world where people like May can actually smile again. Everyone else just stands there in silence, watching this very dramatic yet oddly heartwarming declaration. May's eyes tremble with emotion as she stays in his arms. Later, Kaugasaki Jin and Moranzaka Kayaya return from the agency through the underground tunnel. Kayaya suggests they gather the bodies of their fallen comrades, saying he'll guide Jin to the cremation site so they can start transporting them. Back at the agency, the others are left to handle the corpses, and Yoroshi Ikuri is not happy about it. He mutters complaints about Kayaya dumping all the grunt work on them. That's when Ikuri spots Yujiro Juji just standing there, apparently doing nothing. Frustrated, he yells at him to quit slacking off. Juji calmly replies that he's not slacking. This place was just attacked, which means it's not safe yet. Someone has to stay on guard, and since his ability is built for scouting, he might as well put it to good use. Juji bites his thumb, drawing blood, then lets the drops fall to the ground. Suddenly, a massive radar-like seal of blood spreads across the floor. This is his blood eclipse release technique. Ikuri stares in shock. He's never seen anything like it. Juji explains that his blood can detect any living being within a 5-kilometer radius, and it can even differentiate whether they're Oni or Mama. The radar hums to life, scanning the surroundings. At first, nothing. Then Juji frowns, pointing out the radar sensitivity is low, meaning he can't pinpoint targets perfectly. But then, beep. The radar picks up something. Juji's eyes widen. Whatever it is, it's bad news. Meanwhile, in the Mizumoto region, Momomaya Tsubakuri and Mamikusa Yamaji have already tracked down the secret tunnel. They've even taken out the kind old lady guarding it, RIP Sweet Grandma Defense Squad. Tsubakuri makes a call to his assistant, ordering him to send multiple ugly units to the coordinates, including the special ugly he's been saving for an important occasion. Before hanging up, he also requests the file on high-risk Oni, just for reference. As he ends the call, Tsubakuri mutters that if Naito has already appeared, then something big is happening. Yamaji gestures toward the tunnel, suggesting they throw in poison gas before charging in. Tsubakuri pauses, considers it, then suddenly changes his mind. No, he says, I'll enter the tunnel myself. Before they go in, he tells Yamaji that if they encounter any Oni, they must first ask their names. Confused, she asks why. Tsubakuri explains that if they find someone named Ichino Shiki, he wants him captured alive, not killed. What's so special about him? Yamaji presses. Tsubakuri smiles thinly, because Shiki is different from the rest. Very different, and that makes him valuable. I want him brought back to the lab. With that chilling statement, the two of them step into the tunnel, ready to wipe out the Oni race once and for all. Waranzaka Kayaya had just finished showing Kaugasaki Jin how the crematorium works. As they start heading back to the clinic, Jin asks why they even bothered to build a crematorium here in the first place. Kayaya explains that disasters like today's are far more common than Jin thinks. Bodies pile up quickly, and Oni don't exactly get the luxury of resting in a normal cemetery. Imagine the awkward questions from the neighbors. So cremation is the only real option. He makes it clear the world Jin is stepping into is brutal and saving everyone is impossible. But as long as Kayaya is around, he swears he won't let Jin or the others die easily. When asked if he has more questions, Jin replies that he already understands what he signed up for. He walks past Kayaya, who's about to follow him, when suddenly, a presence sneaks up behind. By the time Kayaya turns, a blade has already pierced him. It's Momomaya Tsubakuri. He clicks his tongue in disappointment. He was aiming for Kayaya's heart, but the man's reflexes ruined his perfect assassination attempt. Jin, realizing these two are Momotaro agents, activates his blood saws and lunges at Tsubakuri. But before he can connect, Mamikusa Yamaji emerges from behind, forming a sinister bacterial cage around Jin's head. Luckily, Kayaya notices just in time and pulls Jin out of the way. The cage clamps down on his arm instead, twisting it all the way around like a demonic corkscrew. The arm is broken, ugly broken, but thanks to Oni regeneration, Jin grits his teeth and says it'll heal in a few minutes. The catch? The healing feels like having your bones rearranged by a jackhammer. With both Kayaya and Jin injured, their chances of winning look slimmer than a paper umbrella in a hurricane. Kayaya orders Jin to return to the clinic, warn Ichino Shiki and the others, and evacuate the patients. Yeah, but how are you going to survive until then? Jin asks. In all honesty, Kayaya admits he has no idea, but he'll figure something out, because that's never gone wrong in history. Jin reluctantly agrees, promising to return. As he runs off, Tsubakuri tells Yamaji to get moving. She crouches down and begins spreading her bacteria. Soon, a black wall rises at the end of the tunnel, and Kayaya realizes their plan. They're sealing off the entire underground network. No escape routes, no reinforcements. With the barrier up, even by Abu-Ghurahammer, Neo won't be swooping in to save the day. Their only hope lies in Shiki and Jin, and frankly, Kayaya isn't sure those two are ready for Tsubakuri and Yamaji. He knows he said he'd find a way to stall them, but staring at the situation now, he can't shake the feeling that today might be his last. Just then, Tsubakuri tilts his head and asks, almost casually, "Tell me, do you happen to know an Oni by the name of Ichino's Shiki?" Waranzaka Kayaya doesn't respond to Mamamaya Tsubakuri's question, but deep down, he knows one thing for sure: if Tsubakuri is looking for Ichino's Shiki, that can't mean anything good. So, he decides to stall, even if it costs him his life. Reaching into his jacket, Kayaya pulls out a vial of deadly poison, his emergency ace. But before he can even uncork it, Tsubakuri dashes forward with terrifying speed and slices straight through his carotid artery. Blood gushes everywhere as Kayaya desperately tries to heal himself with his Oni blood, but it's too late. His knees buckle, and he collapses to the ground. Tsubakuri frowns in disappointment. That's it? Really? I expected more. But then he clicks his tongue again. He came rushing here and forgot to bring any corpses. Annoying mistake for a necromancer. He's about to use his ability to hijack Kayaya's body when something interrupts him. They're here, he mutters, as shadows approach. At his signal, Mamakusa Yamaji snaps her fingers, and four grotesque monsters, Tsubakuri's ugly creations, slither through the bacterial barrier. Tsubakuri asks if they brought what he ordered. One of them hacks up a large slime-coated box. He grimaces. I said, bring it, not drool on it. Open it. The creatures unwrap the spit-covered package, revealing a strange, ominous coffin. Meanwhile, Jin makes it back to the clinic. He pushes the door open, only to find the main room completely empty. Panic sets in. He runs through the halls, calling out, fearing the worst. Suddenly, he turns a corner and finds Shiki pointing a gun straight at him. Both sides sigh in relief when they recognize each other. Shiki lowers the weapon, and Jin is glad to see everyone alive. But there's still one problem. The patients are missing. Shiki explains. Yujirub Juji's ability can scan a 5-kilometer radius, and he detected 2 Mamatero agents in the tunnels. So they began evacuating immediately. The patients made it out, but then a black wall appeared, sealing every exit. A number of staff members, including Mei, are still trapped inside. Suzanami Kina asks what their next move should be, while Abu-Ghurahammer's assistant adds that she's already checked every path in the underground network. All exits are sealed. At that moment, Shiki notices something. Wait, where's Kayaya? Before Jin can answer, one of the uglies barges into the room. The Oni freeze. The creature casually grabs a staff member and devours him alive right in front of them. The horrifying sight shatters everyone's nerves. Panic explodes. Support team members scatter, screaming. Yoroshi Ikari turns to the others. We should run too. Better to be cowards than corpses. Moments later, Tsubakuri and Yamaji stroll into the clinic. Tsubakuri glances around and smirks. Not bad. An underground setup this elaborate. Impressive for Oni. He orders his creatures to set the coffin down. Then, calmly, he says, bring me the boy named Shiki alive. Kill the rest. Yamaji tilts her head. And you? I'll be here, Tsubakuri replies, thinking. Because apparently, even villains need me time. Elsewhere, Kina and Kiriyama Rikuro are hiding in a changing room. Kina rummages through drawers, muttering that her nurse outfit isn't exactly battle-friendly. Meanwhile, Rikuro lies on the floor, gasping dramatically. This is it. My body, I can't take the stress. I'm going to die here. Kina rolls her eyes. Shut up. You're just winded from running. Try breathing instead of whining. Kina eventually decides to ditch the nurse outfit and slip into some sportswear she found. It's lighter, easier to move in, and, let's be honest, way better for setting up an ambush. Rikuro is amazed at how positive and composed people like Kina can be. He, on the other hand, feels like just thinking about fighting that monster is enough to give him a migraine. Suddenly, they hear the sound of an ugly approaching. Rikuro immediately launches into a full-blown panic attack, insisting he wants absolutely nothing to do with it. He begs Kina to handle it for him, which, ironically, triggers her inner yandere instincts. With a calm but slightly unsettling smile, she tells Rikuro not to worry, she'll take care of it. Rikuro is shocked she actually agreed, but she urges him to hurry up and hide before it's too late. Like a man who just saw a cockroach, he scampers straight into a closet. Moments later, the ugly bursts through the door. Kina stands confidently, ready to fight, until the thing speaks and asks if her name is Shiki. She's thrown off for a moment because really, who expects zombie-looking monsters to do roll call? But she quickly replies that she's not Shiki. Once it confirms she isn't the one, the ugly charges. Kina dodges its attacks with ease, rolling out of the way. Unfortunately, in the process, the ugly smashes through a wall, toppling the closet Rikuro is hiding in. The poor guy gets so terrified he literally faints on the spot. 10/10 survival instincts. Outside, Kina is beyond annoyed. The ugly knocked Rikuro over, and now she's officially done playing around. She bites her finger, activating her blood clips, which form into gloves around her fists. With these equipped, her confidence skyrockets. No way she's losing now. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jin is sprinting through the tunnels to find Kayaya, while Yamaji lurks through the clinic halls, eagerly searching for someone unlucky enough to bump into her. As for Ikari, he gets cornered by another ugly in one of the rooms. But instead of panicking, he's actually glad, finally, a chance to show he can do something useful. The ugly growls and asks if he's Shiki, which makes Ikari explode with anger. "Don't compare me to him," he snaps. Ouch, someone's got sibling rivalry issues. Speaking of Shiki, he's busy running around, trying to find a safe place to hide Mei. With limited options, he ends up tucking her away in some bushes and hoping for the best. Back with Kina and Rikuro. Rikuro finally regains consciousness, panicking again because he's convinced his heart actually stopped a moment ago. He notices everything outside has gone quiet and concludes that the terrifying experience must have just been a bad dream. Of course, when he opens the closet door, he's greeted by the ugly staring directly at him. Cue panic attack number 47. He even tries calling a timeout, yes, like in a sports match. But the ugly oddly doesn't attack. That's when Rikuro looks up and sees Kina calmly ordering the ugly to come to her, and surprisingly, the monster actually listens. Kina orders the ugly to stand still and turn its head toward her, like she's lining it up for a passport photo. Once it's in position, she proceeds to knock the absolute daylights out of it. Rikuro knows she's only doing this to protect him, but right now, he's more terrified of Kina than he ever was of the ugly. He covers his eyes, deciding ignorance is bliss. Kina keeps pummeling the monster until it finally stops moving. She then stands up proudly, admiring her handiwork like she just finished a DIY project. Her ability, I love, is a bit terrifying. Anyone who comes into contact with enough of her blood falls under her spell. They slowly lose the will to fight, which lets her beat them down at her leisure. To outsiders, Kina seems like a dependable big sister type. And, well, she is, but her close friends know the truth. She tends to get just a little too attached to people she cares about. Thankfully, she hasn't hit the lock you in the basement level of obsession yet. Small victories. But unfortunately for Rikuro, he's just become her newest object of affection. Rikuro thanks Kina for saving his life, swearing he'll never forget her bravery. Bad move. Those words only fuel her infatuation. She brushes it off, saying monsters like that are weaklings, not even worth breaking a sweat over. And then, without warning, she lies down on the floor and stretches out a hand toward him. Rikuro is completely confused until she picks him up and tucks him into bed beside her like a child's favorite teddy bear. He has no idea how to react, panic, gratitude, scream into a pillow. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the clinic, one of the support team members is desperately running from an ugly. Even though she's a good distance ahead, the monster suddenly pierces her skull, killing her instantly. The ugly doesn't even glance back. It just walks past her body and continues its hunt for more victims. Back in the room, Rikuro is stiff as a board. He blurts out that Kina is way too close, but she's more worried about how pale he looks. She hops up, saying she'll make him something to eat, and asks what his favorite food is while scanning the room for a kitchen. Rikuro, meanwhile, is spiraling. None of this makes sense. Why would Kina care about him this much? The only explanation he can think of is it must be a trap. She's trying to get him to let his guard down so she can use him as bait against the monsters. As Kina returns, she notices Rikuro trembling in fear. Concerned, she asks what's wrong. But before he can answer, she hears footsteps approaching. Turning around, she spots another ugly standing in the doorway. With an exasperated sigh, she gets up again, ready to beat this one to a pulp too.